Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Gas Candy TV. It is a brisk, chilly night here in eastern Pennsylvania. We've had a bit of a cold snap these last couple of days, but work still needs to be done nevertheless. Today we're going to be working on a 2007 Acura TL. This is supposed to be Acura's high-end version with the high output V6. This thing actually will smolder the tire front-wheel drive, which I've never really experienced that since we drive a lot of rear-wheel drive around here, so it's definitely a lot of fun. I picked this thing up a couple months ago. It had 182,000 miles on it. The belt was replaced, the timing belt was replaced at 94,000 miles, 95,000 miles, which is just part of basic maintenance. The water pump started to leak, which is why the gentleman got rid of it. We're going to be replacing the water pump, and while we're in there, we might as well just go ahead and replace the timing belt anyway, because it's been about 90,000 miles. Again, that's all basic maintenance on one of these cars. We're also going to be replacing the spark plugs and give it an oil change with an oil filter and a brand new air filter. And we're going to take it out and do, hopefully some quick burnouts, but we'll see what happens. Anyway, let's get to it. Let's pop the hood. Hood is stuck. There we go. It smells like grape soda. This was definitely a family car. So we got the camera hooked up, and I forgot to press record. So if you're looking at the engine and wondering why the power steering pump and the power steering pump reservoir is off already, that's why. Those are the first two things that have to come off if you decide to do this job. Third thing that has to come off is the motor mount, which Dave is working around right now. I'm underneath on the fourth part. That way we don't have to keep jumping up and down. The fourth thing to come off is the belt tensioner, and the bottom pulley. Once all those are out of your way, it makes getting to the covers of the timing belt fairly simple and straightforward. Once you get the covers off, the timing belt comes off fairly easy. After you get the timing belt off, now it's time to get that water pump out of the way. A 12 millimeter and a 10 millimeter are going to be your best friends on this job. Once you get the water pump out, it's time to do a little bit of cleanup. Make sure the gasket is completely off the block. You don't want any pieces left over that are going to stop you from getting a good seal. Once the water pump goes on, now it's time to put the tensioner back in, tensioner pulley back in, and then you can start snaking the timing belt through. This car's water pump is actually spun by the timing belt, which is why we decided, since the water pump was leaking, you might as well just replace the power or the timing belt as well, because you're right there anyway. And it's been about 90,000 miles. Every 90 to 100,000 on one of these cars is about the time to replace the timing belt. That's what the book says. That's what the manual suggests. And since it's an interference engine, you definitely don't want to overlook it, because it could cause you some major trouble down the line. And if you got big hands, those back bolts are going to be a pain. So just bear that in mind. As the timing lower cover goes on, these bolts are pretty straightforward. Once the pulley's off, it makes it very easy to get to. These were all 10 millimeter. A couple extensions and a couple ratchets. You can get it done. I wouldn't use an electric impact. The torque on electric impact may crack the cover, or you could potentially strip a bolt. In this case, the old-fashioned way is the best way. Good old-fashioned hand tools. Well, Day 2 working on the Acura TL. We're back at it again. After hours work. Then we finished up last night about, what was it, about 11:30, something like that. Yeah, kind of ridiculous, but needed to be done nevertheless. So today it should be pretty simple. We're just putting everything back together, getting a power steering pump on and the belt on and all the rest, tying up all the loose ends, so to speak. So we're going to get to it. Put on my handy dandy rubber gloves. That oil was just running my manicure. I think I scrubbed my hands last night for like 45 minutes. There was no moisture left in them whatsoever. We're gonna take the motor mount back out because I got ahead of myself last night. So this is a prime example of why you shouldn't try to put things together when you're tired. That motor mount has officially been off 3 times right now, and I'm getting ready to put it back on for the 4th time because when we got finished last night, it was close to midnight. And I put it on because I jumped a few steps ahead and didn't realize that I jumped a few steps ahead. Dave was quick to point it out. So after we take the motor mount off yet again, now you can finish putting in the bolts for the timing belt covers and the tensioner pulley. I made a mistake on the last one. It was the idler pulley that we put on, and then we put the tensioner pulley on. So, oh look, the motor mount's going on again. Normally I wouldn't make a big deal about this, but I ordered a new motor mount, and it hasn't come in yet. So the reason I was so frustrated putting it on a 4th time is because I knew I was going to have to take it back off a 5th time just to put the new one in. Yeah, anytime a motor mount comes off in 2 pieces, it's bad. Later on, when we took it down on a test drive, you could feel the motor rocking back and forth a little bit anytime you got on it because that motor mount was just so thrashed. I'm not even torquing that thing down to spec because I know it's coming back off again. So in that scenario, an electric impact do just fine. We're just putting it together now for drivability purposes, to test drive purposes rather. Power steering pump goes back on. It's 3 12mm bolts. Got to hold it in place. Oh, important note. Before you put the power steering pump back on, if you can see, we have the belt already around the crank pulley and the idler pulley and on the tensioner pulley, and it's kind of lapped over the front. This way, the only pulley we have to put it on would be the power steering. It's just a lot easier to snake it through when the motor mount's off and you have the entire front of the engine clear. It just makes your life a lot simpler. Again, this is where skinny hands are going to come in handy, of which I have none. Now that we have the bolts in, it's time to apply my favorite hillbilly trick of them all. Getting more torque out of your wrench 101. I should probably mention at this point, don't try this at home. If that wrench ever flies apart, you're going to find out real quick that it wasn't a great idea. So after we get the belt set and into the grooves, it's time to put the power steering reservoir back on. It basically has a slider channel that's attached to the frame. The reservoir slides down on top of it, and then the return line is a compression clamp. You just slide forward, and then you have a regular screw clamp for the return line that returns to the pump, or goes to the pump. We're using the recommended 5W20 motor oil that the manual recommends for this car. 4.5 quarts is what it calls for. There you have it. With a little bit of can-do attitude and a willing participant and a little bit of help from Google, you can actually do this. It's not that hard of a job. I was actually surprised on how easy it was once we got in there. I'm sure if you've never done it before, it can be a little intimidating. This is actually my first time doing it, if it wasn't blatantly obvious. But yeah, with just a little bit of time and some basic tools, you can make it happen. This car's got 170,000 on it right now. With that new timing belt and water pump, there's no reason that it shouldn't see at least 250. So instead of going out and buying a new one, just fix what you got and put it on the road. Again, guys, make sure you like and subscribe, so you can stay up to date on all of our future content coming out. Again, we've got some big things coming on. If you can see in the background, 66 Valiant. That's going to be getting a major makeover here soon, and a new power plant added. That's going to be coming up shortly because race season is rapidly approaching. So make sure you stick around. Tell your friends, tell your family, hell, even tell people you don't really like about the channel. We definitely appreciate it. If you want, leave us a comment. That helps out the channel too. And we'll see you on the next one. Thanks for sticking around.